Welcome back to the Lost Ledgers. It's a new week. It's a new Wednesday, and we're back. We did it. We did it, guys. None of us died in the past week. Despite our name, none of us are dead. So, last week, we obviously spoke about spooky spells. We didn't get through all of them, but maybe we can change that this time with the new subject. If you're just joining us, my name's Shawn. Below me is Justin.
Howdy.
Below is Adam. And below is Zach.
I really hope that people that don't watch this with video just imagine us all in the same room, just
Just on
underneath
top of each other.
Each other.
Like Scooby Doo when you look over the door and all the heads line up.
Yeah. And then the monster's head lines up at the very top, just slowly.
Also looking for the monster, yeah. So, this week, our subject was pretty interesting. The goal was to bring some items, not necessarily magical, based on monsters in the game. I think many of us had a pretty similar idea of what we wanted to do with that concept, but there's some breakouts and some ambitious choices. So, I don't want to really waste any time here. So, the first thing that we have on here is Justin's item. But before we get into that, was there anything that any of you guys wanted to say before we started talking about all of these?
No regrets.
Sorry, I got distracted because I was making a joke in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well, that's forgivable. So, like we said, the first item, or I should say items here, are Justin's. Justin put a lot of effort into this one, as you can see. He has an entire column of a page filled up. So, why don't you go ahead and take it away, Justin? What do we got here?
Yeah. My most recent expedition to the Northern Lands has allowed me to learn quite a bit about the indigenous tribal customs and even look into some of their more closely held item secrets. Some have asked that I keep the creation process to myself, but I'm allowed to share with you all one of their many sets of magical items. Alone, these items are useful within their own rights, but when combined, unlock the full power within.
Cool.
Mammoth boots. Wondrous item, uncommon, requires attunement. Fun fact, boots aren't just it's not like boots. It's just, they're under wondrous items. I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, it's because they're not armor or weapons. Those are the other big categories. Since 5e doesn't have a slot system like 3rd edition is, it's either armor, a weapon, or a wondrous item. That's basically it.
Well, there's also ring, wand, staff, and rod.
Everybody loves that immovable rod.
All those rods.
Is that the only rod?
No, there's also the Rod of Wonder.
There's a few rods.
Anyways,
Rod Blagojevich.
Anyways,
yeah, like that.
These large boots are made of mammoth hide and fur, granting the wearer steadfast endurance. While you wear them, you gain the following benefits: you gain 10 feet of you gain additional 10 feet of movement. You ignore difficult terrain created by ice or snow, and your carrying capacity is tripled. The next item is the Girdle of Fortitude, another wondrous uncommon item that requires attunement. This girdle is a heavy mammoth fur and ivory enlaced, and it's typically worn kind of across the shoulder. Being attuned to this item makes the wearer feel resilient. You suffer no negative effects of being in a cold environment and have resistance to cold damage. Finally, the Tusked Helm, a wondrous item that is rare and requires attunement. Two large tusks protrude out from both sides of this helmet. In the center of the faceplate appears as if you're looking into a cyclops skull. While wearing this helmet, you can use your action to charge 20 feet in a straight line without provoking attacks of opportunity. Creatures of your choice must make a dexterity saving throw, DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dexterity modifier, or take 4d8 piercing damage on a failed save and is knocked prone, or half as much and not knocked prone on a success. Additionally, you gain a +1 bonus to your AC. The Mantle of the Mammoth. If a creature is attuned to the Mammoth Boots, Girdle of Fortitude, and Tusked Helm at the same time, they gain the ability to wild shape into a mammoth for 1 hour once per long rest.
All right.
I think that this is a fucking spot on flavor wise, and I love that the set combines to give you an extra effect that none of them do on their own. I think that's great.
I really like this because I've always wanted to be Ray Romano.
I love the end effect of this one. I really love them all together coming together for that.
Oh man.
Now there was a part of me that when I was creating it, and I was coming up with kind of this end effect. Like honestly, the end effect was something that that kind of came to me like halfway through the process. I was like, oh, here's like these like this helmet that lets the oh you can that makes you kind of look like a mammoth a little bit in charge. And then I was working and I like thought about like, oh, what about like I thought about like what I would believe mammoth boots would do. And then I thought, well, wait, what happens if I make like a full set of items and they can do something? And as I was creating, and I went straight for essentially I went with wild shape, which I should have a disclaimer as it does essentially work like the druidic wild shape does.
Just to interrupt real quick, the way that you would do that is you would say you gain the ability to transform into a mammoth for 1 hour once per long rest, per the effects of the druid's wild shape. You would just say using the same restrictions or per this ability.
Perfect.
Yeah, or
I
you
also
just say like you'd say something like that, yeah. Or you could just lay out all the rules straight
could.
up.
I
Yeah,
also
But there's
if
a
you
lot
want
of
to
them.
if you want to take another page for this set of magic items, you could.
I also had the thought of because obviously you are only allowed rules as written to be attuned to 3 magical items at once. Now, if you hit these early on, like let's say level 5, level 6, this is a pretty cool set that might, keep you from unattuning to most of most of the items until later on. And I thought to myself, but what if this was somebody that, they're going through the campaign and they've picked up a couple of these items and they've heard the legends. And I also had kind of an idea of what if what if it was a much bigger kind of buff. So something along the lines of maybe each of the items gets, another ability or an ability that is welcome back, Abe. That is or a newer ability. So, for example, I thought of with the Girdle of Fortitude that they get another +1 to their AC and saving throws. Uh, that the boots that you can dash as a bonus action. That the helm that you would deal more damage and could travel further. Uh, so
So,
that was
I mean, scaling the effects would definitely be one option, but what I think personally would be the cleaner way to give these a boost that makes it so that once you collect the whole set, it's still worth it, is that in that Mantle of the Mammoth section, also say that if you're attuned to all 3 of them, they only take 1 attunement slot.
didn't think about that. Pretty good.
That way you can attune to them individually as you're acquiring them, but then once you've got the whole set, you can attune to the set instead of just the 3 individual items.
Yeah.
I like
I
that.
think that would also make it feel just generally more worth it. The one thing, I guess, balance-wise, that I would point out on this one is the Girdle of Fortitude giving resistance to cold. I think that should be rare.
So
Because... Go on.
so I thought about that, but there is a set of boots in the DMG that essentially they allow you to ignore difficult terrain created by ice or snow. They increase your movement and or no, they do not increase your movement, my mistake. But they allow you to ignore difficult terrain and they give you resistance to cold damage. And
Thank
that
you.
isn't uncommon.
So I pulled that out because I knew that you were going to correct me. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Wizards did not care about the rarity of items when they made them. There is
We know
armor
this.
whose only effect is to give resistance to damage, and it is by default rare. And that can give you resistance to any sort of damage, but it only gives you resistance to 1. It doesn't say, oh, if it's cold and fire, it's uncommon. If it's force and thunder, it's rare. No, it's just any damage is rare. And it could do that because it does that with other effects. So I just wanted to point that out. Get on our ass about the rarity of items.
So, for that particular case, I think that might just be because there is a generic item, which is the Armor of Resistance, that can appear in any of, how many damage types are there? 12 specific variants, and they want to assign a rarity to the generic item, even though the specific variants are, because of how damage types are split up, of differing power.
I don't. If that was the case, then they wouldn't have. It could be the case, but I'm just pointing out how that does make Wizards inconsistent because they have other items that do a similar kind of thing where they break down rarity based on the benefit that it gives. And they could have easily have done that for the armor as well.
But in general, they only do that if they have significantly different effects. Like, the figurines of power all have their own rarities because they all have their own distinct effects. But, like, a +1 battle axe isn't a different rarity than a +1 dagger, you know? Like, that's my argument here. I'm not trying to say that Wizards is consistent about their magic item rarities, because they definitely aren't, but I think that for the generic specific thing in general, that's why it is that way.
That's fair, and that I 100% believe that is why they did it. I just think that they shouldn't have done it and that they are inconsistent. By the way, thanks for gathers for the follow about 5 minutes ago. We appreciate it.
Thank you. On the topic of the rarities of the items, I almost think that the tusked helm should be very rare, just because there's no limit on how many times you can use this.
Well, I was also thinking. I was thinking about that.
The big thing is that you have to trade whatever other actions you have to do this effect, and it's not like the greatest effect. This is probably on par with like a level 2 spell. Which I think
damage.
So my big problem with that action is that it's creatures of your choice in the line. I really feel like it should just be any creature in the line.
Yeah, it probably should.
yeah, possibly.
I was just like, I was just like, I feel like it's already not that good of an action to begin with, but
I mean,
I think it'd still be worth it.
That's the thing. It's a fine action. I think that an action to deal 48 damage on a failed save to creatures in a 20-foot line is a fine action. It's nothing great, but also it's worth noting this lets you get a bunch of movement in. So This is sort of half of a dash plus some damage. So I definitely think that it's still a worthwhile action. I just really dislike that it's creatures of your choice. Because, one, you're charging down a line. You aren't weaving in and out to avoid people. You are charging. And two, it's a line, not a cone, not a sphere. You are choosing one specific line. So if there's somebody you don't want to hit, you just won't choose a line that has them in it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, I think this is cool. I think I agree with Adam in that you could probably change it at the very end that if you have all three, they only take 1 2-minute slot, and I think that'd still be okay. Because I think that at that point, your DM could basically just consider this a legendary item. Because I think all these effects stacked on top of each other is about on par with legendary item. That's including, of course, the wild shape ability.
Yeah, I also wanted to make it because originally the Tusked Helm, the part of its feature, I realized it was also going to, I wanted it to kind of, I wanted it to be like an armor at first, but then I thought, no, I kind of want this to be able to, for as many classes as possible, to be able to use this.
Well, and that's actually one thing that I really like about this is that what this gives you is in no way class specific.
Yeah.
Anyone would like some extra movement and cold resistance and triple their carrying capacity. And that action, while good, is not particularly, it's not extra good for any particular class. It's just a mobility action that also deals some damage. I think that this is, I like how versatile this is, in that this is just as desirable for a cleric or a rogue or a warlock or a fighter. Like, anybody could want this set if it fits the theme of what they want their character to be.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to make one thing, and this isn't a note about your items at all. This is just something that I thought while you were talking about them. I heard girdle, and I thought of garter belt. So I thought you made a magical garter belt. And
Of the
part of me
mammoth.
thought that was pretty dope, but another part of me was like, thought it was really funny.
Next time. Next time.
Also, Justin, you spelled fortitude wrong. You have spelled fortitude.
I don't want to talk about it. It
Yeah.
would.
Attunement. You also spelled attunement two different ways, and the first time you did it was correct.
Ah!
And
Yeah.
you have also spelled wondrous as wondrowers for mammoth
hours,
boots.
yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
I didn't change.
Yeah.
You got wondrous right on the other two.
Ugh!
But you only got attunement right on the mammoth boots. You get it wrong on the helm and the girdle.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about this. I'm not known for my spelling.
Unfortunate.
But
Yeah.
no, I love these items. They're other than the tusked helm, it's simple, straightforward effects, which I think for an uncommon item is perfectly fine. It should be simple, it should be straightforward. And then the tusked helm isn't exactly complicated. It's just a combat effect, so you have to take a couple of lines to explain the parameters. Like I like this set. I like the extra effect that it gives you. Although off the top of my head, I don't know what CR a mammoth is. Are they CR3?
Six.
Woo! Big boy. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
That I think that makes sense as a reward for getting the whole set then.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and there's not a whole lot in like. There's not a whole lot of like set items or anything like that in D&D, like, or at least in the DMG, I should say. Like the closest we get is that giant that like giant slayer hammer that you get if you are like attuned to like a belt, like any of the giants of belt kind.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think like the
Oh yeah,
ogre.
the analog for Thor's hammer. Yes.
Yeah, like that's like the only like set that that you could realistically like bring up. And I think that's a really big missed opportunity. And I you know I got a different book. I got a third party source book. And through that book, they have a couple of sets in there, and I think it's really cool. They don't have anything along the lines of like, if you have this set or if you have enough items from this set, it counts for one attunement slot. But that allows them to kind of what they do is they kind of have it a bit more flexible for where they have like five pieces of equipment, and if you're attuned to any of the three, you get, a special benefit from it. And I just think that there's more room for sets of items in D&D. That doesn't have to
Oh,
all
yeah.
be armor. That doesn't have to all be weapons.
Sets
But
are dope.
I just love sets. And who doesn't love going into battle or like
On
walking around with
fleek, bro.
dude,
Well,
like
and-
basically.
Well, and sets give sort of not quite collectathon, but like that feeling of, well, I've got one, now I need to find out where the others are. Like,
Yeah. It has a built-in quest attached to them, which I think is dope as
Yeah.
fuck.
That's the thing.
Um,
I have a big soft spot for any item that automatically sends you on a quest.
100%. All right. Well,
This is great, Justin. I also liked the flavor text at the beginning, giving the implication that this is like from some sort of like anthropological survey. Like some guy got home from doing an ethnography and was like, "Okay, but guys, they turn into fucking mammoths up there. This is so cool."
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of the members of the Dead Bard Society up there talking.
It is solid flavor text.
We'll
Hell
find
yeah.
out their name at some point in the future.
Oh, you even give him a name. Interesting. All right. Well, I think we said about as much as we could on this one. It's pretty cool idea. I love the multiple sets or not the multiple sets, but the whole set becoming one thing at the end. I think that's dope, and I think there's a couple of small changes that we kind of agreed on. But I don't have much more to say about this. What about you guys?
Yeah, I've said my piece.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is Adam's item. It
excellent.
looks like
I'm
Adam
so happy.
very, very much wanted to become the Azer guy. So
I did. I didn't realize that I wanted to be the Azer guy. I thought that I would reveal myself as the Thrycreen guy first, but I haven't had much of a chance to talk about my first love, so we'll talk about the Azer. So this is the Hammer of the Azer. It's a war hammer, so it's a weapon.
Love
It's very
Warhammer.
rare, and it's supposed to say there that it requires attunement. I didn't put that in the description. So that's supposed to say requires attunement. This hammer bears the marks and magic of an Azer forge. While you are attuned to this weapon, it deals an additional 1d8 fire damage to any target it hits. You can use a bonus action to speak the hammer's command word, causing the hammer to glow with the heat of its home forge, emitting bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for an additional 20 feet. As an action, you can speak the hammer's command word while striking the ground with it in order to create 1d3 Azer in unoccupied spaces within 10 feet of you. The created Azer are friendly to you and will obey your verbal commands, but will not take actions that would result in certain death, and will not attack other Azer. The Azer share your initiative, but take their turn immediately after yours. If you do not command them, they will take the dodge action and move to avoid danger. After 1 hour, the created Azer are no longer under your control, but are not necessarily hostile to you. They will begin moving in the direction of the nearest natural fire elemental, or portal to the elemental plane of fire, attempting to make their way to the plane where they would be most at home. Once you use this property of the hammer, it cannot be used again until the next dawn.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Thanks.
I'm pretty down with that. I like the idea that if given enough time, you can trap hundreds of Azers in a fireless room.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're in a dungeon, they don't necessarily have anywhere else to go. But, like, I mean, as a side effect of using this hammer, you might slowly be populating the material plane with a diaspora of Azer who can't go back to the plane of fire.
So it says they'll head in the direction nearest. Do they just know?
They don't. So, as part of their stat block in the monster manual, no. But as part of the effect of their creation by this hammer, this is, as far as I know, the only way that an Azer could be born anywhere outside the plane of fire. And so I'm imagining that they're born with some kind of connection to fire, that they're like, I'm not supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be where it burns.
Yeah.
So they look for a fire or an elemental or a portal to the elemental plane of fire. And so they might just end up forming a community of Azer at the top of a nearby volcano or something. I don't know. But, like, I really wanted them to not disappear. Because this is mostly a weaker version of Conjure Minor Elementals. I mean, you're casting it at 6th level, essentially, but it's Conjure Minor Elementals. You're getting a low CR elemental, but you don't get to choose the type. But they won't commit suicide for you, and they won't disappear when they're done.
What CR are they?
Azer are CR2. So, getting one of them is equivalent to a 4th level spell, getting 2 is equivalent to a 6th level spell, and getting 3 is technically equivalent to a 7th level spell, I think? I don't remember scaling for Conjure Minor Elementals off the top of my head, but D3 is... If you get 3 of them, this is quite powerful, just because you're getting 3 CR2 monsters. But...
Abe said, you could conjure an Azer barbershop quartet. Unfortunately, you can only summon 3 of them, but you can be the lead man in that quartet if you want it.
There we go. So, an Azer, baritone, tenor, and alto, and then me as the soprano.
Comparing this to the Bowl of Commanding Water, though, which allows you to summon a water elemental, which is CR5 once per day, it's not that crazy. That's rare. This is very rare, and all this gives you in addition to that is 1d8 fire damage per hit and some light, which is a cantrip.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I think this is more than okay where it's at.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't have a lot of criticism on this. I think this is as well crafted as it can be. I love the idea because the whole thing about Azers, they forge each other. So I love the idea that you create Azer. The best thing about this though is that you create Azer. You don't summon them from their plane. You just straight create them.
Yeah, these are not Azer who you have transported to where you are from the elemental plane of fire. These are brand new Azer who you have created, and their initial instinct is to do what you ask of them. But then after that, they want to go somewhere where it's hot.
Yeah. I have a question,
I
Adam.
think it's
Go ahead, sorry.
no. Go ahead with your question.
I was gonna say, if you were to summon these Azer and trap them in a dungeon like we mentioned immediately afterward, would they become Azer Cinder? For being neglected as such?
Not necessarily. So my intention with the Azer Cinder was that there was some external force that was removing their fire from them, but I could definitely see if a particularly strong villain got their hand on the hammer of the Azer, they might suddenly have an army of Azer Cinders.
Yeah, I love how well crafted this is in just its synergy and the crafting, the using a hammer to do it, and I don't have much to add to this one either. I think this one's beautifully crafted.
Thank you. As much as I love it when we argue for 20 minutes about whether something should be +2 or +3, I also love when we only spend 10 minutes on an item because we're like, actually, this seems fine.
Abe wants to know, Adam, you're the expert on Azers. Can Azers carry a tune?
So I imagine, I don't know this as rules as written, but I would imagine that the Azer would have a very tinny voice. So while they are stout and heavy creatures, I would imagine because of the like metallic nature of them, they might have a very high-pitched voice. So I see no reason why they couldn't carry a tune, but I don't have any particular evidence that they can. So that's a great question, Abe, and I'd like to find out.
So two things.
Elemental bus. I think that's beyond the realm of what I can handle right now.
So two things. One, for Conjure Minor Elementals, if you got 2 of them, you are you're essentially getting the equivalent of a 6th level spell slot. If you get
Yes.
3 of them, you are getting the equivalent of an 8th level spell slot.
Okay, so it only goes up 1 more at 8th. It doesn't double again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems surprisingly weak to me.
Well,
yeah, I think that I don't think that Conjure Minor Elementals scales very well.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Well, it does. Well, it does scale the way that all of these other ones do because it's
right, but the conjure spells in general, I don't think
But,
scale super well.
This is one of the PHB conjure spells, so it's
True.
not great.
2, I guess this is probably just me nitpicking.
I mean,
Azer-
we tore apart your typos, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Alright,
please,
fair enough.
by all means, nitpick.
The Azer do not speak. They would not you unless you knew how to speak Ignan, their language. They wouldn't be able to fully understand you.
Yo, let the hammer teach you Ignan.
Yeah, just
That'd be kind of dope. I'd love that actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's actually the fix that I would go for. But to further quibble with Justin, Conjure Minor Elementals says nothing about a language barrier. They obey any verbal commands that you issue to them, no action required by you. So, yes, they don't understand you, but the magic of the hammer means that they do anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. After the hour passes, they will no longer understand your commands.
I mean, Justin, that's the same thing with beasts. They don't know any languages. Right?
Dude,
if you conjure animals, they still follow your directions.
You look at a dog and you tell me that they don't understand English.
You look at a cat and tell me that they do.
Actually,
Cats are assholes.
There have been studies which show that cats understand, they just don't care.
Cats are just assholes.
But also, just to further quibble, because we're quibbling now, conjure animals, they're technically fae, not beast.
Oh, you got me. That's true.
But no, actually, I do love the hammer should give you the ability to speak Ignan while attuned to it.
That's dope.
That's fucking sick. And actually, it would probably be best then to include that the runes carved on it are in Ignan. So
yeah,
it's also interesting too for that because going back a little bit earlier and saying like, man, we're just starting a new colony of Azer on the material plane. I'm someone that can talk to them. Like, imagine just after an hour and they just kind of speak for the first time. Just, what do we do? What do we do here?
Hey, are you my dad?
Father. They're probably like, All right, like we said, I think this one's as, and I don't have a lot of criticisms on it. I just think it's dope as fuck. Other than I
Hell
think maybe we
yeah.
should teach you Ignin just because that'd be cool. Not because it's a flaw of the item in any way. Just
Yeah.
one more little additional thing. So does anybody
Yeah,
else
no,
have anything else to say on this one?
No, it's beautiful. I think it's beautifully crafted.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. No, I definitely agree. It should probably teach you Ignin just so that you can continue to communicate with them after the hour.
Yeah.
It's a good, yeah. All right. Well, going on to the next one is Zach's. Zach. Also,
Prepare to be underwhelmed.
Zach also taking on the role of a guy, but for Bullywugs instead of Azers. What do we got here, Zach?
Do not want to follow the hammer that we just saw, but here we go. Bullywug Trickster kit. I have it as a wondrous item that's uncommon. I don't know if that's correct or not. This is a kit composed of many different Bullywug traps, tricky items, and even Bullywug fluid.
Oh
Included
god,
in
why
this-
does it have Bullywug fluid in it?
For various reasons. Included in this kit are the following. A floor trap can be set up on any natural surface to create a trap. It takes one action, and any creature that steps on the same space must make a dexterity saving throw DC 12, as some Bullywug fluid is flung at them. On a failed save, target takes 1d4 poison damage and is blinded until the end of their next turn. On a successful save, nothing happens. A creature can use their action to wipe off the Bullywug fluid from their eyes, removing the blinded condition. Blow dart. Choose one target within 20 feet. Shoot a dart dipped in Bullywug fluid at them. They must make a dexterity saving throw DC 12 on a failed save. Target takes 1d4 poison damage and is poisoned until the end of their next turn. On a successful save, nothing happens. The kit contains 10 uses of Bullywug fluid.
I think this is
Used
pretty
on
good.
us.
This is
Uh,
dope as hell, man. Like,
yeah,
you
this
were
is
saying
cool.
that you
It's-
didn't want to follow the hammer, but as disgusted as I am by the Bullywug fluid, this is a great item.
This is obviously not magical. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
It's treated as if it's magical. It's not. But other than that, I think this is dope. The only thing that I would maybe change is let the poison last for a minute and let a saver return. Because poison's a much weaker effect than blinded. It makes sense to blinded till the end of the next turn. But poison, I think, could be for a minute. And
Sure.
I think it'd still be okay. Especially with the DC 12 save. It's a pretty easy save.
Yeah,
Yeah.
relatively easy save.
Bullywugs are
Um,
not like high CR creatures. So.
No.
No, I love this, dude, and I especially love that you went with a non-magical item. Like that was bold of you, because we all went with magic. I'm pretty sure.
We did. I think this just is awesome. I mean, this fills a niche that you kind of want caltrips to fill, but if you're not
Right.
really like satisfied entirely with the caltrips, this gives you more options to do with like simple traps you can use.
Right, yeah, mundane traps where you're like, no, I'm not a magical trap setter. I'm not some kind of wizard who's trying to fuck somebody up. I'm just, a regular run-of-the-mill Joe Blow wants to murder people with spikes.
Or Bullywug fluid.
Or Bullywug fluid. Yeah, I don't care for the visual of Bullywug fluid, but this is incredibly evocative, especially given your Bullywug variants from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
does bring up something very, very interesting using Bullywug variants from a couple weeks ago. Imagine kind of being able, or if you have Bullywugs as somewhat of a kind of staple in your campaign, which why wouldn't you? I mean, they're Bullywugs, they're fucking dope. This could be something that kind of evolves throughout a campaign as you run into different Bullywug species, or if you happen to have if you have this kit and then you come across just kind of a band of just a variety of them, you could work with your DM and come up with all sorts of effects without changing the core mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be sick. It would be work, which I'm never a fan of. I hate doing work. That's why I'm here every week reviewing new homebrew that we've all made, because I hate doing work. But
That's fair.
Hey, the more I hear from you guys, the less I have to do.
I was actually gonna say, every week that we make something, I'm like, Oh, damn, that'd be fun to use.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that'd be fun to use, and I didn't even have to make it myself? Oh, wow, this is great.
So I'll be honest. There's some things I want to say about formatting, but Zach yells at me when I talk about that stuff, so I'm scared of saying anything. But I'm going to anyway, because I'm brave.
I think that we can spend a little bit of time on formatting, especially since we just spent like 5 or 10 minutes telling Zach how much we love the item. So now we can rip into him for how much we hate the formatting.
Please.
The biggest thing is just where you say, like, the way you present the Bullywug fluid. I think it should just be at the top saying this kit contains 10 pieces of Bullywug fluid, and you can use that fluid in the following ways, and then give the 2 effects. That's the biggest thing. It's just for simplicity of reading, because someone might look at this, read it, and see Bullywug fluid and think like that's an effect, and it's like, oh wow, the floor trap and the blow dart are great. It doesn't have a limit. I can just use this.
Yeah, I know. I was going to do that. I didn't get time to do that and format it correctly, and I wanted to come up with a third thing, but I
That's fair.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Also, I don't think this is 100% necessary, but I think it'd be nice if you specified for each thing when it does so, it consumes 1 use of Bullywug fluid, just so that you could leave it open for, you could have a thing that consumes 2 uses, maybe. Like,
Ooh. Yeah. You could definitely expand upon this and get more little effects.
Yeah, especially if Bullywugs are like a big force in your campaign. It could be like, as you work with the Bullywugs, you discover or like you develop with them new uses for their trap kit and their various fluids.
I'm a ranger with Bullywug favorite enemy, and I have this Bullywug trickery kit, and I can just learn more and more of their traps and use them.
Oh god. That'd be so cool.
Let's not go too far. Come on, we gotta make sure the ranger stay in its place, okay? I will say, imagine you're just, again, Bullywug themed campaign, and you're just towards the end, and during the
You're towards the end?
fight,
What's the end? What's the end for the campaign?
Level 17
I don't know.
campaign.
I don't know.
I was
But
gonna
just
say,
imagine.
Is this
I say the end's not very far away.
I was gonna say, isn't the end of a Bullywug themed campaign like level 5? When you completely class Bullywugs?
Not even if you're doing the like fucking
I say-
PHB Bullywug.
Yeah.
But just imagine, you're in the BBEG fight, and just all over are these little annoying ass floor traps.
You mean the BBEB, the big bad enemy Bullywug?
hey, it could be a Bullywug sympathizer.
I think you mean the BBBB, the big bad Bullywug.
Yes.
You know, the most amazing thing to me about Bullywugs is that they get 2 attacks as a 1/4 CR.
Yeah.
creature.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
they're pretty weird. I think because their attack bonus is so low, they can be allowed it. Because I think even on the balance table for creating a monster, +2 or +4 is the lowest in that table, I think, and Bullywugs have +3.
Poor Bullywug.
Poor Bullywugs.
Another quibble about your formatting is that you have a colon between your DC and the number.
We gotta scrap the whole thing now.
Well, it's just that for that, normally you would say they must make a DC 12 dexterity saving throw or something like that.
Yeah, no
like,
order.
or if you do want to put it after, like put it in parentheses or something. But the colon, I think, is unnecessary.
Sean's gonna fix it all.
I mean,
It's true.
yes.
I still think it's worth talking about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Just like anybody out there who's aspiring to do their own homebrew, there's some like little formatting things that like you really can only pick up when you hear them or when somebody else points it out to you or
Like,
you
like
read
the fact-
just all of the items in the game and you're like, oh, that's how they do it.
Like the fact that for like years I would put May in my abilities and my items, and it took months of Shawn pointing out to me, Adam, Wizards never says May. They never say May. And I'm like, but they should. It's a perfectly good modal verb. Why don't they? And he's right. They don't. So I don't anymore in my homebrew. But yeah, they don't say May. It's can or do or whatever. Like it's not May.
I'm gonna start figuring out how to completely do things wrong.
Just so you talk about your items
Everything
more.
just slightly wrong.
Yeah.
Like that, you're very your rarity before the item type. Like,
Yo, we're building a meta within our own thing. Zach's gonna start fucking things up so we talk about his items more. Justin's making everything in sets so we can talk about all his stuff without cutting it off at some point. Like we have to talk about his stuff.
What
oh,
about
God.
Adams then?
Just
Uh,
all
the
Azer all the time.
Adam's goal is Adam's goal is to have his items be talked about the least as possible.
Yes. my goal is to make an item where like I read it aloud and then you're all like done. Nothing.
You just
no
clap.
comments.
Just clapping.
just well done. No
Done.
comment. No comment.
Yeah,
Just moving
I
on.
want to make an item that somehow generates zero discussion.
See, I do that. Well, I'll have things like that, and you guys are like, "Yeah, I don't really have anything to say." And I'm like, "Okay, what can I say to make this into a conversation?" Because I want to talk about my item.
Yeah.
I have the exact opposite motivation. I'm like, "No, I want the feedback. My ego can't take nothing."
See, my ego loves it because I'm like, oh, no criticism? Ooh.
All right. Well, like I said, like we said, I don't think we have much more to say about the Bullywug Trickster kit.
No, this is great.
Dope.
Yeah, dope as hell. Which
Thank
I
you,
never
thank
thought I
you.
would say about anything Bullywug related.
I didn't expect anybody to think it was as cool as I thought it was.
I think it's dope.
Dude, I just
More
had a few-
mundane items that do cool stuff. I try to make a whole rogue subclass based on mundane items and making them more useful. I might go back to that actually. That idea.
Oh,
That sounds
yeah.
like a lot of fun. Because they don't get a
What-
lot of use.
Sorry, you just got me thinking, because that's a fucking great idea.
Isn't it? I need to go back on it. That was back when I was first doing homebrew, so it was all bad. I think I could probably put something together now, though.
Hell
Quick.
yeah.
add it to the discussion sheet.
Added to the discussion sheet, we all make subclasses based on using mundane items.
Oh,
No,
God,
no, we create a bunch of useful mundane items.
Oh,
Oh,
that'd be
that could
tough.
be interesting. That'd be
I
tough.
think-
We have to make a lot of them.
Honestly, I think that we should maybe roll that one into the traps thing that we were
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Anyways,
We could.
We should move on to the next item and have this
We should.
discussion off camera.
We should.
Yeah.
We should have talked about what we're doing next week before we got on podcast. If we're gonna do it. But anyway, let's go on and move to the next thing, which I believe. Where's my mouse? Which I believe is mine.
Yours, John, yeah?
Yes. We have here Chasmeic armor based on the Chasmeic demon. Armor. Any heavy armor. None of that medium or light shit. Rare.
Yeah.
Requires attunement. This armor produces a subtle droning sound within 10 feet of you. You gain the following benefits. Echolocation. You gain blind sight up to 10 feet. You can't use this blind sight while you're deafened. Spider climb. You can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. All right, this is the big one. Horde drone. Very much inspired by the Chasmeic drone ability. Creatures of your choice that start their turn within 10 feet of you and can hear must succeed on a Constitution saving throw, DC based on your Constitution modifier, or become rattled, which is a placeholder condition name I used here to save wording space, or become rattled and begin to fall unconscious. While rattled, a creature's speed is halved. It can't take reactions, and it can't make more than one melee or ranged attack in a turn. If a rattled creature also casts a spell, it must first succeed on a DC 10 concentration check, or the creature spell fails, and it has no effect. The rattled creature must repeat the saving throw if it starts its next turn within 10 feet of you, falling unconscious on a failure or ending the effect on a success. The creature wakes if it takes damage, or if another creature uses an action to shake or slap it awake. Slap thee awake. Cool. If a creature saving throw is successful or the effect ends for it, it is immune to the horror drone for the next 24 hours.
I love the any item that gives like non-magical people the ability to take care of like magical or mages or anything
Yeah.
like that to compete with them. So I love the idea of the concentration check, as small as it is.
Yeah, I was debating making guys just check the same DC, but I was like, that might be a bit too strong.
Yeah, that would be too strong.
So first of all, I love the echolocation and the spider climb and the drone. I think it was a great idea to split it into two saves like the Medusas,
Yeah.
as opposed to the one save that the Chasmeic normally has. My only concern about the way that you split it up is that unless you stay close. Unless your enemy stays close to you and attempts to save again, I don't see any way for the rattled condition to end. I don't see a duration on it or a way for them to lose the rattled condition without attempting to save again.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, no, it's supposed to say become rattled until the end of their next turn.
End of their next turn. Okay. I
That
assumed
was a
it was
mistake by
something
my.
like that.
That was originally in there, but then I redid the wording to be close to the Medusas.
Okay.
But because of the condition of the 10 feet next to you thing on the second save, you're right. It technically does not allow them for a second save.
Okay.
It doesn't allow them to get rid of the rattle condition.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I figured. I figured that it was supposed to be something like that, and the wording just got lost when you split it up. But yeah,
Right.
that was my big concern about it. I think this is phenomenal. I love saves based on your Constitution modifier. I love the based on Constitution stuff. I think that having that placeholder condition of rattled is great. For like, oh, you're slipping away, but you're not quite there yet. I might use drowsy instead of rattled, but that's semantics.
I was stuck between something like drowsy or rattled because in one way you're falling unconscious, but in the other way, like the way the rattle or the way the sound works in the Chasmeic static block isn't that it like puts you to sleep. It's that it fucks with your head so much that you just fall unconscious.
Yeah, it's almost like shocking you to sleep.
Yeah,
maybe distracted rather than rattled.
I didn't use distracted because I have that homebrew condition called distracted.
Oh, okay, sure, that's fair. But distracted, drowsy.
If you can find a better adjective to use, I'd be more than happy.
Disoriented.
I like that.
Disoriented could work, yeah. But rattled is no, rattled is more like you're like
rattled is more like shaken.
Yeah.
I
can see disoriented.
Disoriented, disturbed, perhaps.
I almost went with disturbed.
Disjointed.
Disjointed.
Disjointed is not bad.
Dismembered.
Well, we can figure that out at some other time. It's not important. All that matters is that I created disappointed. You just become disappointed
until you fall asleep, dude.
But yeah,
the monster looks at you and he just says, "I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed."
Disturbed.
The one thing about the rattle condition, though, is that, and this isn't necessarily an issue, but like you can't lesser restoration it because it's not one of the listed effects. For instance,
I mean,
I decided I didn't care.
Yeah, one, how often are your monsters using lesser restoration? 2, if you want it to be covered by lesser restoration, you could just include in here a lesser restoration spell ends the effect.
Yeah, I liked because what I really wanted to do was just have the effects of that second paragraph. But the only reason I codified it into a word was to save on wording.
Right. That's the thing. So that you don't have to say later, a creature so affected must repeat its saving throw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I was like, if I just have it condensed down to one word, it'd be easier to like, not only easier to save space, but also for someone to just understand like, oh, I am rattled and this is what rattled does.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. Even if you never use the rattled condition anywhere else, it's pulling its weight here by saving you not only words, but also the mental overhead of a creature so affected. Well, affected by what? Oh, right. That condition from 2 paragraphs ago. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just trying to think of the concentration check. Just because while getting a chance to make someone make a concentration check, I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about like a DC 10. I don't know, but also
DC 10 is like the baseline of the concentration check, though.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's supposed to be a difficult check. It's just supposed to be a impediment.
It's supposed it's just supposed to be scary. It's not meant to be like. It's supposed to hold back casters, not disable them. Just like the physical effects hold back marshals, but don't disable them. They can still do the things they do, But a
They just
caster,
don't have multi-attack anymore.
yeah, they don't have multi-attack and they can't take reactions, but that's it. Or will the speeds half, but that affects everyone, not just marshals.
Well,
Yeah.
technically they would still get their opportunity attacks because it says in a turn, not in a round.
What do you mean?
It says it can't make more than one melee or ranged attack in a turn. Oh,
It
you
cannot
have
take
it can't
reactions.
Sorry, I can't read apparently.
It's also kind of a nerf version of the slow spell.
Right, yeah.
So
This is awesome with like somebody going a con build, because I feel like con builds are somewhat not appetizing a lot of the times.
The biggest problem with con builds is that you have to give up being good at affecting things to gain being good at withstanding things.
Yeah.
I think maybe I this is just probably me being super nitpicky. Is just and this is I know the typical effect for being immune to something is oh, you succeeded, now you're immune for 24 hours. I don't know, like a part of it for me is just like what if that got brought down to like an hour? Not like
Okay,
that.
but this item is most items are for PCs to wear and use, right? The difference for a monster that you are fighting, there is effectively no difference between 24 hours and forever.
Right. I guess
Or an
I guess it's
hour
just,
and 24 hours in the same vein.
Precisely.
Yeah,
That's
I
the thing. If the encounter is over, odds are, one, you're never going to see that monster again, or
Yeah.
two, it's the big bad and they don't want it to be immune to the effect forever.
And if you are going to see the monster again, you're likely using this to incapacitate them so you can take them away somewhere else, probably for longer than a day, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair.
I do understand the concern though, because
Yeah.
like if this was an ability on a monster, then you might want it to only be you're immune for the next hour. So that if the monster comes back and finds them again, if an hour has passed, if they took a short rest in between, for example, they could potentially be affected by it again. I understand the concern, but I think that specifically because this is an item and items are usually for player use, it's fine.
Well,
big-
I was also
the big thing, just to address this more directly, the big thing that I chose 24 hours for was because on a PC, being able to do this passively is strong. If I allow them to do it passively all the time with no, like, I don't want it to snowball on itself, right? I don't want a creature to wake up and then immediately become rattled and then unconscious again. Because the unconscious condition is extremely powerful. Just getting it once on a monster, which is why I made it so slow, getting it once on a monster is likely killing that monster. Because by the time their next turn comes around, the PCs are going to circle that monster, all prepared to attack, and all get, well, the first one will get critical hits technically. But they'll all get advantage on their attacks. They can use riskier spells that do more damage that have attack rolls because they don't have to worry so much about missing. And the character who needs crits the most can attack first and get auto crits. So that's the main reason I didn't want it to be repeatable in the same combat. Now, an hour would still fix that, but in my, as Adam put it, in my perspective, an hour and 24 hours in the vast majority of cases are going to be effectively the same time period because you're most likely never going to see the monster again after an hour.
Yeah, I was just more on the train of thought of as you face higher CR creatures, they tend to be more intelligent, they tend to run away, and just the idea of potentially being able to catch back up with them in the same day, though.
Honestly, in that case, I think that 24 hours is better than an hour. If you are in a situation where you are catching back up with a monster who ran away from you, or a monster who you ran away from is catching back up with you, I think it's fine that this effect won't proc on them again.
Yeah,
That's fair.
personally, I like this as 24 hours. I think an hour is too strong, even in niche situations such as that. I think it is too strong. Or even if you like consider giving a bunch of like a DM gives all of the creatures in an area this armor, and it's 1 hour, and you end up in an area for longer than an hour. You don't want it to keep being used on you. So if it's like just a one-use thing, once you pass it, then you're immune to it. The player characters would be immune to it as they go through.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out as well is I didn't want to give the armor an effect that was stronger than the monster's effect, right? I already gave it a better DC based on your con, because technically the Chasmeic's DC is based on your con, but once you get this at higher levels, you'll have a higher DC than the Chasmeic does, because Chasmeic only has a +1 con. It's not that crazy. It's only a DC 12 save.
I was gonna say, isn't the DC on this for the Chasmeic like 12 or 13 or something?
It's it's very low, and it's a CR6 monster.
Save.
It's not a weak monster. It's a pretty respectable monster. And I didn't want to give you effects that outdid their own effect, which is why it's both a nerfed version of it, which isn't an auto unconscious, and also a higher DC more often, is to kind of balance that out. And because it's a CR6 monster, I didn't want to make it a very rare item, which I think if I made the time period lower, it would have to be a very rare item at that point.
I don't know. My CR2 monster got a very rare item.
Well, it's summoning a bunch of CR2. It's a very different effect.
You are colonizing the physical the
material plane.
One lonely person gets that hammer, and they're just like, I have family now.
I have family now.
Hold on a sec. I'm coming up with a backstory now.
God, no, this is a great item, and I honestly, as much as we're quibbling about the rattled effect and how to word it and how to time it, I think that you did a good job of turning a monster with a very A or B, like pass or fail effect into something with gradations and shades of gray. This, it's not exactly the same, but this definitely gives me the same vibe as, like, I think Pathfinder had this sort of thing where if you failed an effect if you failed a saving throw by more than a certain amount, you got an even worse effect. So, like, how much you failed by determined how bad the effect was. This sort of evokes that of there are grades of success for the save.
Yeah, some of the monsters like the Medusa have that, where it's like so Medusa has the slowdown effect where it's like 2 saves you die, but if you fail the first one bad enough, you just go straight to petrification.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that because that's cool.
Understand.
I just don't like the straight you go from A to dead.
Yeah, no, I understand why you didn't use that mechanic here.
Yeah.
But the way that you set this up, it gives you what I consider the upside of that mechanic, which is the gradation of failure states.
Nah, fuck it, dude. Make it fucking 1 minute, make it immediate unconsciousness, and make it legendary.
You just walk into a room full of melee fighters and they all immediately fall unconscious due to your key.
Yeah.
No, I like this.
No, this is sick. This is sick as hell, man.
All right. Well, I'm happy to move on.
I think it says a lot about how great Horrid Drone is that we have completely ignored the echolocation and spider climb.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Spider climb's fine, and echolocation, I like it's not amazing, but I like the edit effect.
It's good. It's no better than the blind fighting style, and I think that getting a fighting style on a rare magical armor is fine.
Rogues also get this. Rogues also get the ability to just have 10 feet of blind sight at like 14th level or something.
It's not exactly that. They just get to know the location of invisible creatures within 10 feet of them, which is
not all of blind sight.
My bad. The location of any hidden creatures within 10 feet of them, I believe is what it is.
Right.
So not even necessarily invisible.
Right. If you're invisible but not hidden, they don't get to know your location any more than they normally do.
Yeah.
Wait. I'm wrong.
Well, I'm scrolling down.
Great to know.
The next item is Zach's actual magic item.
Yeah.
Woo!
Once again, Zach brought an Ooze to the monster showcase, and now he's brought an Ooze-based ability.
Oh,
so
I did.
I am deeming Zach as also the Ooze guy.
I didn't even realize. This one came to me in a late one night.
In a dream.
When are you gonna combine the two with Bullywugs and Oozes, Zach?
Shut up.
Oh shit. Shut up.
Not building into it or anything, please.
Yeah, let the slow burn happen, Justin. Zach, take it away.
This is the Black Pudding Ooze Shield. It's an Armor Shield, rare and requires attunement. This shield is delicately crafted from the remains of a black pudding ooze, the material being on the outside of the shield, causing enemies to be more punished from you blocking. A creature that misses you with a melee attack while within 5 feet of you is considered blocked by this shield. A blocked non-magical weapon made of metal or wood that hits the pudding corrodes. The weapon takes a permanent and cumulative -1 penalty to damage rolls. If its penalty drops to -5, the weapon is destroyed. Non-magical ammunition made of metal or wood that is blocked is destroyed after dealing damage.
Sick shit.
I think I forgot to change the end there. It's supposed to be blocked instead of takes damage because I kind of just took the black
Yeah.
pudding.
I
Pretty standard for this.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's basically just plucking the black pudding's effect
Yeah.
and putting it on the shield, which I think is
Yep.
fine. The oozes do have like kind of a fiddliness to them with some of their effects. That the black pudding and the rust monsters specifically both have like a similar effect to this, where it's
Right, because
kind of
they-
fiddly to have to track that negative effect. But I think
But on-
5 is fine.
Well, and on the other hand, if it just ate your weapon immediately, like it used to do in old editions, that'd
Oh,
be kind
yeah.
of punishing for 5e. So one quibble that I have is that you don't define how a ranged attack could be considered blocked by the shield.
That's true.
Because you say a creature that misses you with a melee attack while within 5 feet of you is considered blocked by the shield. But then later on, you say non-magical ammunition that is blocked is destroyed. But you never define how a ranged attack could be considered blocked by the shield.
Yeah, I should just say an attack that misses.
Yeah, it's like non-magical ammunition from a ranged attack that misses you would be fine for that language.
I did take away the damage that comes from the corrosiveness.
Oh
I
yeah,
think that might
there's
have been a
damage
good
on
call.
that. Okay. The only other thing I was going to say is that if we thought that the effect was too strong as is, you might mod it to if it misses you by more than X.
That was my original thought.
Right, because I know that I've seen items that are trying to do something similar to this before, and what they will often do is, if it misses you by 2 or less, so that it can sort of quantify the idea of this would have this missed with the shield, but it wouldn't have missed without. But
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think the effect is too strong as is. So I think that just saying that any attack that misses you in melee is blocked by the shield.
Yeah, I considered doing that, but because it's you have to get to -5 even, which
Right, you
I
have to get to -5, and that's fiddly to track of, oh, wait, this missed, but what's my AC right now? Oh, right, I've got a penalty from this, I've got a bonus from cover. Ugh.
Yeah, this
yeah,
one.
my I thought it was -3, honestly. I didn't even realize it was -5.
I mean, I think that, honestly, I think pushing it to -3 is plausible, just because of how short most 5e combats are.
This was going to be my suggestion, and this might be a stretch, but you can. This is going to be more powerful, so I think it would be more reasonable to make this if you miss by like 5 or more or something. But the first time they miss, the attacks that they make against you don't add their modifier of strength or dexterity, and the third time they miss you, it breaks their weapon. So that way there's only 2 cases of failure and only 3 hits involved. So that way it actually comes into fruition more often in attacks. And the big thing that I'm thinking about in this situation is if I'm throwing a bunch of mooks at you and there's 3 guys attacking you that track all 3 of the hits, it's easier for me to track their state than it is for me to track their individual minuses. So if I can just mark no modifier, and then just go 1, 2, 3 broken. 1, 2, 3 broken. Instead of 1 means -1, 2 means -2, 3 means -3, 4.
Like I said, I thought it was -3. Looking at it now, -5 is too much, and I would have came up with something else because that as even a DM wanting to track that. No, I could do 3. I could do 3. 5, fuck that. So
5 is a lot. Well, and also the vast majority of combats don't last 5 rounds.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's like this for fighting the creature.
Well, counterpoint to that, most of the time, let me double check here. Actually, a black pudding ooze is what, like CR
4.
Yeah. So 1 level away, at level, if it was a CR 5, 4 CR 5, or fuck, you know what I mean.
I really
have
don't.
no idea.
Because you have
Or-
not said anything that means anything yet.
four level 5 PCs.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant by that. Where you get extra attack for your martial classes. So I think actually it's not necessarily 5 rounds. A lot of especially a lot of monsters and a lot of humanoid creatures have multi attack, so they're going to be hitting 2, 3.
Right, they have multi-attack, but they also have high attack modifiers. Like, monsters aren't missing you 3 times in a turn most of the time.
That's if you're a chump with low AC.
Listen, we can't all have a 24 AC, Justin. Some of us are working warlocks who have to get by with a 13 AC. But no, honestly, yeah, monsters have multi-attack, but monsters also have high enough attack bonuses that they're hitting you more than 50% of the time at most levels. So, yeah, it's going to take them 5 rounds to get to a -5, or 3 rounds to get to a -3 if we're editing it to -3. I think that -3 is probably appropriate, because that means that if
Yeah.
they get a couple of bad attacks in on you, it will make them think twice about attacking
Yes.
you again.
I think I
think
like
that-
Shawn's suggestion though. I think I do like the making a below 5 miss and have
Yeah.
the 3 stages. I like that quite a bit.
I think the below 5. I think Justin has a valid point here. The below 5 is what I suggested because I was considering multiple attacks. If it were 1 attack per round, I would be okay without the -5, because it would be so slow.
Yeah.
But with a multi attack, I think it should be if you miss by 5 or more, because more often than not, they're going to be within that range of 5 in your AC.
Yeah,
if they're
and for
missing.
me, even just like in my head, an attack that misses by 1 is not something you blocked with a shield like really well. Like, so to me, just even in my head, thinking about like an attack missing by 5 or more, you straight up knew it was coming and like were able to block it with your shield.
Sure.
Yeah. I do have a suggestion for for a ribbon ability on this. Because it is just the 1 effect, I think it could do with like 1 additional like almost flavor type thing.
Immune to acid damage.
No, something more interesting. You gain the ability to burn through a foot of metal or wood per minute. So you could use this to like siege through like a wooden fortress or to melt through a metal door, because the original effect for the pudding does allow, as long as it's not magical, of course. So you can burrow through wood or metal at a rate of 1 foot per minute, or maybe even 2 feet per minute, because that'd be an exact match. But then 1 foot is anyway some amount of time per minute, or some small amount of metal or wood per minute, so that you could like, in some situations, there'd be a neat thing where like, I know there's a metal door in front of us, but you know what I have? Fuck my hand. You know, like you can melt through some stuff, and I think that'd be a cool little bonus that you could get.
I agree. I agree with Shawn in that I like that kind of ribbon ability where it's like, this will rarely, if ever, matter, but it gives a little bit more character to the item. And honestly, when you get an item with a ribbon ability like that, you're always looking for opportunities to use it. Because you're like, yeah, this shield eats my enemy's weapons all the time, but you know what I want to do? I want to fucking tunnel through a wall with it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I
do like this item, like immediately it's like, you know, if I saw this in the game as a player, I'd be like, can I make this? I'd ask my DM, can I make this? Because I think I would allow it. I'd allow some time to be put down on this to make it.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be somewhat difficult. Like,
100%. Working with black ooze acid, yeah.
Having to go find a black pudding ooze.
That's the thing. First of all, you have to kill a black pudding. Second of all, you have to harvest it without killing yourself.
Yeah.
100%. I think it's cool.
Top-notch stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I like those changes. That's I had a couple of thoughts like that when I was making it, but I went with the like copy paste. And like I said, I thought it was -3. Even like reading it here now on the like PDF that I have, it's hard to tell that it's a 5.
It is. One thing interesting about 5e is that some monsters just play asymmetrically from the players, period. Like, there's a lot of holdover effects from older editions that make their way into 5e simply because that's how the monster worked in older editions. And because of that, some monsters, like the Black Pudding or the Rust Monster, just have a very asymmetric feel from the players, where it feels like they're playing like a different kind of game because their mechanics work like this.
Yeah.
Like, very rarely do you get any effects that's like a stacking effect
for like 5 times.
That's a very rare thing in 5e like that, especially a flat modifier like that. Because even the way they do armor, like half cover and 3/4 cover, it's not a penalty to hit. It's a bonus to your armor, which is just like their way of like having the DM have to track a bunch of attacks that minus is harder than having the players have to track their AC with that cover.
Yeah. If you were like and then you're not doing the like +1, -1, +2 from this.
The modifier crunching.
Yeah. Because you're like, I have +5 from whatever ability, and then they're behind cover, so they have -5 to my attack, and it's like, no, just they have +5 or +2.
Yeah, and that's also reflected in, like, for instance, 2-weapon fighting. 2-weapon fighting in older editions was you get a -2 to your attacks with your offhand, like based on the size of the weapon, whether or not you have a feat for it, and whether or not you can add like all that. In this, it's just you can't add your modifier to the attack unless you have the thing for it. That's it.
Do you want to know what the rule was in second edition? In second edition, you got a -2 to attack and damage with your main hand, and a -5 to attack and damage with your offhand.
Oh man!
If you were a ranger, then it was a -1 in your main hand and a -3 in your offhand. And if you had the two-weapon fighting skill, then you had a +1 penalty in your main hand on top of your regular penalty, and then a +2 bonus in your offhand on top of the regular penalty. So if you were a ranger with two-handed fighting, you had a +1 in your right hand and a -1 on your left. It was a fucking nightmare.
That sounds more accurate for sure.
Oh yeah.
What did I come back to?
The thing is, two-weapon fighting is still such a cool fantasy that people would still do it. I still built two-weapon fighting characters in second edition, but it was a fucking nightmare trying to figure out what the hell my bonus was.
Yeah.
And
We were talking.
Sorry,
I was trying to catch Justin up. We were talking about how some monsters in D&D hold over from old editions and make some of the fights feel asymmetric in mechanics. So I brought up 2-weapon fighting and how in older editions it worked so much more complicated than how it does now. So Adam started going tired about 2-weapon fighting.
Well, and then it's like, oh, I'm a 4th level fighter, so you know what I get to do? I get to make 3 attacks every 2 rounds.
Yep.
Well, I think we're done with my item.
I think we all just kind of like this, and those small tweaks. I think.
Yeah, I like.
Honestly, all of the items we've looked at so far, I've just been like, yeah, this is cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, well then we could go ahead and move on to the next one, which I think is Adam's. It is Adam's.
Yeah.
All right, Adam.
Excellent.
We've got this little thing going on. Why don't
you
go
didn't make
ahead
a
and
shield
take it
with
over?
me this week?
I'm sorry, I didn't make a shield. I already made I made a legendary shield, so I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good on shields for a while. This is the Hydra's Mantle. It's a wondrous item. It's a very rare, and it requires attunement. And I actually remembered to say that this time. This tough leather mantle has 2 long, thick strips of material that each end in an embroidered pattern of a Hydra's head. These strips move and wave under their own power, giving the wearer the silhouette of having extra arms or extra necks. While attuned to the mantle, you remain aware of your surroundings while asleep. Furthermore, you get an extra reaction that can only be used for opportunity attacks. That's it. That's all of it. That's the whole text.
My only thing on this is with the wording is instead of saying an extra reaction that can only use for opportunity attacks, I would say you can make an opportunity attack once per turn without consuming your reaction.
That wording is stolen verbatim from the Hydra in the monster manual.
Oh, is it? Well,
yep.
That's another case. A lot of the monster verbiage is very inconsistent, to be very honest. So a lot of monsters that have similar effects word it completely different, which is very interesting to me. It's
Yeah.
obviously
But-
because they had multiple people working on this, and like,
Right, and that's the thing. It's a 500-page book with
Yeah.
hundreds of individual monsters, and I, in other homebrew, have worded getting an extra reaction in different ways than this. But when I looked at the Hydra to see exactly what abilities it had, the way that it's worded is that for each head the Hydra has beyond the first, it gets an extra reaction that can only be used for opportunity attacks. And so I was like, well, they've already got this wording here. I may as well just use it. Because the way that I've worded it in the past is that between each of your turns, you can take an extra reaction, but...
Yeah, no, I that makes sense. Copying and pasting from the monster manual is perfectly fine. Then, I think it's gonna be rare instead of very rare.
Yeah.
Honestly,
That was my
Yeah,
thought. I love it, but it feels a little.
Yeah,
weak
I was
almost.
on the fence between rare and very rare. So there's nothing that gives you an extra reaction right now.
Mhm.
So I didn't really know how to value that.
Right.
There's one other item that lets you maintain awareness while you're asleep, but it also gives you advantage on all perception checks involving sight and an AC bonus. And so I was like, extra reaction, advantage on perception checks, and a +1 to AC. I felt like those were similar in value.
if it
but
was
I
just an extra reaction, the extra reaction I think would
Yeah.
be better.
Oh yes,
Probably.
But since it's
Yeah.
only for opportunity attacks, I think it's
Yeah.
significantly less
okay,
from
then
my
yeah,
perspective.
this could probably afford to be rare. I don't remember what that item is called. I think it's called like the Watcher's Helm or something. Helm of Watching, something like that. It's a helmet that gives you +1 to your AC. You remain aware while you're asleep, and you get advantage on perception
Watchful
checks.
Helm.
Watchful Helm.
It's from
Um,
Candlekeep Mysteries,
Oh, okay.
so I don't have it. I don't have Candlekeep Mysteries items for some reason.
But yeah, so that's what I was comparing this to, and so I thought that they were at least relatively comparable for rarity.
Yeah.
But if that is a weak, very rare item, and this is a little bit weaker than that, then yeah, this is probably rare.
Yeah, I think so.
My original thought was, instead of remain aware of your surroundings while asleep, I was going to try to come up with some ability that essentially said, like, you can't be surprised by creatures that aren't hidden. But I couldn't think of the right way to word that, because I essentially wanted want the cape to be keeping its eyes out for other things going on.
Yeah.
But I couldn't think of a good way to do that without just giving you a bonus to your passive perception, and I didn't want it to just be a straight bonus to your passive perception. So I just went with the you remain aware of your surroundings while asleep.
I mean,
makes
you could also just say that you can't be surprised, that you cannot be surprised.
I guess. But the thing is, but the thing is, so I do want you to be able to be surprised by, for example, hidden creatures. Or not hidden creatures, but like invisible creatures. Or like, I want you to be able to be surprised if you open a door and there's someone waiting for you. Like, I don't want you to never be surprised. I want you to be harder to surprise. And as far as I can tell, the only way to mechanically represent that is a bonus to your perception. And I didn't quite want to give this that. So...
So if you're looking for a good way of like representing the fact that you have multiple eyes around, why didn't you just go for the multiple heads feature that Hydras get? At least to some extent. Which is the advantage on blinded and deafened and all that. Because I think advantage on deafened and blinded would be effective here.
When I was looking at that, it felt kind of wordy to me for the effect that I wanted.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to make this, give it something else to make it very. But if you didn't really want any other effects to this, then I think it's just a rare item.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want it to be very rare. I mostly just wanted it. Mostly, I wanted to give you an extra reaction, and then the remaining aware while you're asleep thing is mostly a ribbon that I added due to the flavor that I gave it for the reaction. So,
If Shawn's armor is rare, then this is rare.
My armor?
The armor
your
that you made.
Chasmeic armor.
Oh yeah, I somehow forgot about that entirely. Yeah, I think this is definitely on the rare end.
I love the effect of it and everything,
I
and
do
even
too.
getting the extra reaction. I love the idea of something doing that, giving an extra reaction. But I do think it's rare. But I love the item.
That's totally fine. That's the thing. I'm gonna be honest. I think I mentioned this before
Just
we
makes
got on
it
the
cheaper.
podcast. I don't have a great sense of where item rarities should be unless I'm looking at like a weapon or
Yeah.
armor with like a bonus and a strict mechanical thing that it does. Because like getting an extra reaction, like I said, there's no item as far as I know that does that. So it's kind of uncharted territory in terms of how much that is worth.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just I think what you can still do is you can still kind of look at a few very rare items and compare it.
I've looked at a lot of very rare items. My problem is
Different
that I
effects.
don't have a table that tells me an extra reaction is worth 3d6 damage in a round. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was just reaction, definitely very rare. But because it's only opportunity attacks.
Sure.
But
Well,
I love it though. I love the theme of it too, like having this mantle that seems to be like helping and reacting around you as well.
Why not give it a bonus to your passive perception? Like a +5, like the alert feat.
because I felt like +5 was too much, and I
Mm,
didn't want to get super crunchy with the numbers.
Gotcha.
I
And that doesn't
Oh,
seem to
what
fit
if-
the like what you wanted for this either, because this is like you're aware when you're awake, but like having a Hydra doesn't make you more perceptive.
Well, he
per
said that
se.
he wanted you to be able to like not be surprised in circumstances, which I think fits the passive perception well.
Yeah, I think that +5 to passive perception. So +5 to passive perception basically amounts to advantage on perception.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
but
One
only for
implies the
passive.
other, but not the other way around.
Yeah. What would I don't know. Let me read this again because it's well to the middle. Your main word.
To me, that makes sense not giving it the +5.
Yeah, I wish this is one of the circumstances where I wish that 5e's design ethos let you be just a little bit crunchier. Because what I want this to do is to give you like a +2 to your perception. Like I want this to be a reasonable bonus, but not anything huge. You know.
Right.
+1 to wisdom.
That would be a bit much, I think.
That would be a bit much because then it would be on par with like a tome.
Or
Well,
an Ion Stone.
Yeah.
here's the thing: the Belt of Dwarven Kind. I'm double checking, but it gives you a +2 to your Constitution modifier, and that's just a rare magical item, along with all of the other effects it has. So a +2 to your
Does it
wisdom.
give you a plus to your con?
I don't think it
Belt
does.
of Dwarven Kind does indeed give you a +2 to your to a
Oh.
maximum of 20, but
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Wow. 2 to
Oh.
wisdom?
How's that effect not stand out to me?
I was thinking about because I was thinking about like trying to compare like when Adam was like talking about like I don't have a good metric for comparing like a very like for this.
you know
in my
what?
mind-
Maybe giving you a +2 to your wisdom, so it just bumps up your wisdom. The thing is, I don't want you to be more wise. I don't want you to be a better spellcaster for wearing this
Yeah.
mantle. I want you to be more perceptive.
Why not? I mean, if you have plus to your wisdom, I think about
And
this
you've
way.
killed or gotten to the point where you've seen a Hydra.
You're more effective at your verbal and somatic components as a spellcaster, right? You have kind of an extended consciousness, so it makes sense for you to have more resistance to wisdom saving throws. And when it comes to your skill checks, I think having additional heads would make you better at least perception. But I also think probably survival and maybe animal handling. So a flat bonus to wisdom could make sense to me.
And insight is basically just perception for people, so extra eyes would still help.
Yeah.
I guess I don't hate the idea of it just giving you a flat bonus to wisdom. I would rather it give you a perception specific bonus, but
Yeah.
I'm having trouble coming up with a perception
Plus
specific bonus.
10.
I think
No.
I mean, does the Cloak of Elvenkind give you a bonus to perception? Does it give like advantage to perception checks or something like that?
Cloak of
Probably
Elvenkind.
advantage.
The Cloak of Elvenkind gives people disadvantage when trying to see you.
Oh, the opposite. I see.
I'm pretty
Um,
sure.
yeah.
sure.
And you
That's
have
right.
advantage on stealth checks made to hide.
Yeah.
You could like
Um,
I mean you could do advantage on perception and also advantage on saving throws against blinded and deafened.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what's going on here. Is like it's giving you more sensory perception, so it'd be harder for spells to affect you in that way.
I like that, and if we're going to give it that, I think it deserves the very rare tag at that point.
That's fair.
Sure. I think it might.
I think
at
it's
that
a
point,
low end very rare.
I
But
think it might be
yeah.
a weak, very rare item then, but like I think it'd be a little strong for rare if you're
yeah,
getting
for the-
advantage on
for the
perception
pricing
checks.
of like a rare item.
Sure.
Yeah. And make it a valuable item for like one-shot builds for like perception-based characters, though. Still,
Yeah.
even
that's
as a
the thing.
very rare.
With oh man, what was I gonna say? The other. Oh no, that's advantage on initiative, not perception. Never mind. I was thinking of the wrong thing.
The rod of alertness.
No, the Peregrine Mask.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
like that addition to this, adding the advantage on those three things. I think still fits the theming even of
Yeah.
this. It makes it a little bit more wordy, but I mean, you could do with a few more words.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
Adam,
that's
you
fine.
didn't use enough words.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like 2/3 of this text is flavor text.
Yeah, it's
There's
not you.
very little rules
Yeah.
text here.
Yeah.
Now
just make this a set, and Justin will be happy.
You want a set of Hydra gear?
If
Hold
you-
on.
if you no, if, all you gotta do is attune to 3 Hydra mantles, and you could just turn into a Hydra.
That's all of his sets are just turning into shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, do we have anything immediately to say about this one, or?
I was trying to find other items that give you advantage on perception checks so that I could compare them, but I'm not finding an easy way to filter for that.
Rod of
So
alertness. While
Rod
holding
of
the rod,
alertness.
you have advantage on wisdom perception checks and on rolls for initiative. So
What's the rarity?
that's a very rare item on its own.
right,
Oh, but you can also cast spells from it, and it has a protective aura. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is
Yeah.
fine then.
Tons of things give perception advantage. I don't think
Yeah.
that bumps it up too high.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. I'll
I don't
trust you
even
guys
think-
on that.
Yeah, I don't even think +5 just perception
I mean-
flat bumps it up that high. Like,
I mean like the alert feat.
I mean,
Gives
plus
you a
5
five.
and advantage are basically the same.
yeah.
So what's alert give you? Plus 5 to initiative, can't be surprised while you're conscious. Other creatures you don't get advantage on attack rolls.
Oh,
am I thinking of observant? Sorry. Observance still only gives you a +5 to perception.
Yeah. And observance a fucking half feat. So yeah, I think this is fine to give you advantage on perception checks and advantage on saves against blinded and deafened.
For first time
Yeah.
listeners / viewers, we kind of have things we have feats kind of categorized by their full or half feats based on
That's a pretty common thing in the
categorization.
community. But yeah, if you're pretty new, that might be confusing.
Yeah, so a half feat is a feat that also gives you +1 to an ability score. A full feat doesn't give you an ASI at all. It just gives you other stuff.
Yeah.
The implication being that when you choose a feat, your option is a full feat, a full ASI, or a half feat that gives you half of the ASI too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you should get all of the effects that you get from multiple heads on the Hydras thing, but I do love I love
Blinded and
getting
deafened is fine.
I love getting like certain effect stuff like that on like items or even abilities and stuff like that, where it's like a somewhat niche thing, but like
Yeah.
definitely useful.
Well, and yeah, that's the thing. How often are you blinded or deafened in a campaign? I'd say pretty rarely.
Yeah, that's
But having an
super
advantage
common.
on it, but
Yeah,
having an
well,
advantage on it when it does happen.
And
You're like,
normally when you're
oh, I have something for this. Like,
and normally when you're being blinded, you aren't technically being blinded, you're just in the dark.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like those changes. I think advantage to perception checks, advantage against blinded and blindness and deafness. I think those are good.
Perfect.
Hell yeah.
Well, anybody else has anything to add to this one?
No.
Nah.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and move us on over to the last one here, because it is the last one. So we're really pushing over a little bit.
time, Shawn?
Jesus.
I think we will.
I
I don't think it's super bad. So you can tell it's fairly large. I think that's pretty clear to see. So I'm just gonna run through it real quickly. The Cloak of Fey Blessing, wondrous item, legendary, requires attunement. A Cloak of Fey Blessing is granted to those who have been designated by a Fey Lord or Lady. The cloak starts with 1 Fey blessing when created. The wearer can accumulate more blessings upon the cloak by earning the favor of a Fey of the respective blessing. A blessing cannot be earned by harming or threatening to harm the Fey, or by magically influencing its mind or forcing its hand. If the cloak has 3 or more Fey blessings on it, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects while you wear the cloak. Some of these Fey blessings require the target to make a saving throw to resist the blessing's effects. The saving throw DC is calculated as 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma modifier, your choice. Now all the blessings. The Blink Dog blessing. As a bonus action, on your turn, you can magically teleport 40 feet to an occupied space you could see. The Dryad blessing. You can use 10 feet of your movement to step magically into one living tree within 5 feet of you and emerge from a second living tree within 60 feet of the first tree, appearing on unoccupied space within 5 feet of the second tree. Both trees must be at least one size larger than you. Additionally, as an action, you can target one humanoid or beast that you can see within 30 feet of you. The target can see you and must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be magically charmed. The charmed creature will regard you as a trusted friend to be heeded and protected. Although the target isn't under your control, it takes your requests or actions in the most favorable way possible, or it can. Each time you or your allies do anything harmful to the target, you can repeat the saving throw effect, ending it in success. Otherwise, the effect lasts for 24 hours or until you die, or on another plane of existence from the target, or end the effect as a bonus action. The target saving throw is successful. The target is immune to the effect for 24 hours. Once you successfully harm a humanoid in this way, you cannot target a humanoid again until you finish a short or long rest. The Pixie Blessing. As an action, you can magically turn invisible along with any equipment you are wearing or carrying until your concentration ends as a concentrating spell. Any equipment you are wearing carries turns visible with it. I already said that. I don't know why I said it again. Once you turn invisible in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. The Satyr Blessing. As an action while you're playing an instrument, you can play a charming melody, a frightening strain, or a gentle lullaby. Any creature within 60 feet of you that can hear the song must succeed. That should be a DC from the DC thing. I didn't update it. I just copy and paste it from the Satyr. But a wisdom saving throw or be affected as the song states below. Satyrs and creatures that can't be charmed are unaffected. Charming melody allows you to charm them. Frightening strain allows you to frighten them. And gentle lullaby puts them to sleep. But they wake up to taking any damage or someone shakes the creature awake. An affected creature can make the saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. And again, the creature's unaffected or is immune for 24 hours if they save. I already said that as well, I think. I did not. That was on another effect. And then finally, the Sprite Blessing. As an action, you can touch a creature and magically learn the creature's current emotional state. If the creature fails a charisma saving throw, you also know its alignment, and if it's celestial, fiend, or undead, it automatically fails the save. Additionally, if you hit a creature with weapon attack, you can force the creature to succeed on a Constitution saving throw or become poisoned for 1 minute. If its saving throw result is 5 or lower, the poisoned target falls unconscious while it is poisoned in this way. It wakes early if it takes damage, or another creature takes an action to shake it awake. And that's it. Those are all the blessings.
Woo! Okay, so my first concern, under Blink Dog Blessing, you specify that you teleport 40 feet. 40 feels like a weird number, so I checked the Blink Dog, and that's the distance that the Blink Dog can target or can teleport, but that's the Blink Dog's speed also. Should it maybe just be you can teleport up to your speed?
I was originally going to do that, but if I do that, if you're grappled, you can't teleport. And the Blink Dog is not affected in that way when being grappled. It's just they're both flat things.
That's excellent. I hate that being grappled reduces your speed to 0 and doesn't just make you immobile in some other way. I hate that it reduces your speed to 0 because I am inclined to create effects that rely on your speed. Like, oh, you can teleport up to your speed, or you can do X up to your speed. Like, I'm inclined to design things that rely on that, but then they stop working if you're grappled. Dryad feels like it does a lot, but the charm effect isn't actually that powerful, so I think that's actually fine. Pixie Blessing, why do you not just have it say you can cast greater invisibility once per short rest? Is it because you want the longer time limit?
No, because if you cast a spell, it can be counterspell. I could say, as I did with the Barbarian, again, this was just copy and pasting from the Monster Stat Block, more or less. I could just say
as the effects of greater invisibility.
As the effects of greater invisibility. But then that's not SRD, and people might have to look that up. And I just thought it's not that wordy to just put the full effect because it's not a super complicated effect.
Sure,
So
it's not a super complicated effect. I just thought it was weird that there's a spell that does exactly that you didn't just say you're casting. So
yeah, it's literally just because I don't want it to be counterspellable or detectable as being cast. You just turn invisible.
Sure. And then I got distracted looking up greater invisibility while you mentioned Satyr Blessing, so I'm gonna reread that while other people talk.
Sure.
So real quick, combat I assume that there's no limitation. They can just teleport 40
Correct.
feet as a bonus action every
Correct.
turn. Okay. I'm a bit hesitant on where I stand with that. I feel as though that is both. I'm like right on that line for just like, is that too strong if it doesn't have
It's a
some
legendary item.
It's a legendary
this,
item.
This is a legendary item, Justin, and you need to remember it's not going to have all of these. It's going to have one, and then you have to earn more. So if you have Blink Dog Blessing on this, and that's the only thing you have, this is a legendary item that only lets you teleport every turn.
That's fair.
It is notable. It doesn't necessarily only come with one. There's no restriction on this to say that if you defeat someone or are gifted this by someone who already has it and you take it, then it might have more than they earned. That's up to the DM, obviously. Yeah. So it's up to the DM to gauge whether or not certain effects are going.
On that note, you should put in here somewhere that the DM determines what blessings has, because a lot of items have that.
So a lot of items will say like, oh, the DM determines how many charges it has when you.
And I got you, Shawn. And I got you.
I do not believe that is necessary verbiage.
Neither do I.
But Neither do I. It is, I do think that it is. I did originally have that in here, but it made the intro paragraph too long, and I just didn't like it. And I was like, it's not necessary. The DM already controls that. There's nothing on the item saying that it has to start with one. It's just when it's created, it starts with one. So it's up to the DM to understand that when they want to hand this item out. And if you're DMing a D&D game, do not hand out magical items unless you fully understand what's going on. Read that thing a couple of times. You're going to want to know what it does and what you can do with it before you hand it out.
Just give it to people.
Honestly, even better than reading it a couple times, go look it up on like Reddit or some other forums and see what other people are saying about the items. Because a lot of the times you'll read an item and you will be thinking about it in one particular way, and that might not be the way where it's the most effective. And so you might miss an interaction. You might miss, oh, that interacts with the barbarian's rage in a weird way. Or, oh, that makes my warlock do stupid garbage with Eldritch Blast. Like, reread items a couple times and then go see what other people are saying about those items. Because a lot of items look perfectly innocuous, but they're not. Like, there's an item from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica that lets you, whenever you cast a cantrip, you cast it twice.
Oh, God.
Which, on characters who aren't warlocks, that's fine. Nobody other than warlocks gets really good cantrips. But a warlock casting Eldritch Blast twice a turn for no resource cost every turn of every combat, that's really, really good.
It's insane.
I don't have a problem with Dryad Blessing. I think that's fair. That's fine. Pixie Blessing. So it doesn't state anywhere like how long this effect lasts. I guess until
your concentration ends. That's it. Pixie's invisibility does not have a time limit. It's just until they're done being invisible.
That's okay. That answers my question.
That's why pixies make such great familiars if you're packed to the chain.
Fuck that.
Fuck
pixie familiars.
Hey, I only had a sprite. They had a regular old.
Oh, there was a sprite. That shit sucked.
The Satyr Blessing. I think there should be a clause that says creatures of your choice. But if you're wanting to stay as true as you can to
that one.
to the Satyr Blessing.
The the way that works for satyrs is that they don't have to worry about putting their satyrs to sleep. But yeah, I agree with you. I perhaps should make that creature of your choice. Otherwise, I don't think it's legendary worthy effect.
I was gonna say Satyr Blessing. I think is the weakest ability by far. If you do not add the creatures of your choice tag,
because the unconsciousness is really strong, but you could get that with the Sprite Blessing, with the poison. But of course, they'd be immune to poison. Then you're fucked. The satyr allows you to overcome that, unless they can't be charmed, in which you're fucked. So both of them have that clause already, which makes the satyr even weaker in comparison, because it's like they get the save every turn. And they it's mostly for the versatility, but the versatility is not great if you can't target things. So I do want to add that in there.
Yeah,
so
and
if you're adding, I'm sorry, Justin, what was that?
I was just gonna say, and with this being a legendary item that you're assumingly gonna be, you're either gonna get this real early with like maybe one of the blessings, and this is just kind of your item that scales as the campaign goes, as you're doing favors.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that you can use this item.
Right, but
go on.
But
as a DM,
that's one way. But then as a legendary item, which most legendary items do get added in later into the campaign when you're facing higher CR monsters that are immune to poison, that
and
are
charmed.
immune to charmed, immune to fright. Well, actually, I think we discussed last time that there wasn't there's not actually as many creatures that are immune to frightened as we originally thought. But
not as many, but there's still a ton.
That's the thing. There's still a fair number, but it's not as common as we originally thought.
Those for me just sort of like this magical item. It feels like it's got a couple really strong, and then a couple that could be insanely strong. Till you run into things that are immune to it, and then those abilities are just kind of.
So I think that Satyr and Sprite Blessing are both very strong abilities if they're the second blessing that you get. I think that Satyr Blessing and Sprite Blessing could be very underwhelming, or possibly even feel bads if they're the first blessing that you get on this item. I think that for the first blessing, a DM would want to lean towards Blink Dog, Dryad, or Pixie Blessing, because those ones are more generically useful. Because Dryad, even if you can't get the charm effect off, the transport via plants effect is still helpful in a lot of scenarios. So that's I think that that's just a place where the DM needs to be cognizant of what powers they're putting on this. And I mean, the Satyr Blessing or the the Satyr or Sprite Blessings could be valuable if this is an item that you receive on the earlier side in the campaign. If you're receiving this item at level like 10 or 11 and it's got one of the weaker blessings on it, it's still a powerful item. And yes, a lot of things are immune to poison, but a lot of things aren't. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that have resistance or immunity to poison, but I think that over half of the monsters in the monster manual are still susceptible to it. It is the most resisted thing, but there's still more things that can be affected by it than can't.
Yeah. God, sorry.
I love this for all the things that a DM can do with it. Like Shawn was saying earlier, giving somebody an item that immediately gives you a quest, and this isn't even perhaps a quest, it could be accompanied by a quest, and it's even just like giving a character a goal, a drive, something to also strive for while they're doing whatever else they're doing. They're proving themselves as they go along. This immediately made me think of pairing it with something like my Orion's sword that I made. Getting those two things together, like you're becoming like a champion of a god.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. This item this item feels like the MacGuffin of an entire campaign.
Yeah.
This feels
I
like
can't remember the name of those items.
What?
The vestiges?
The artifacts?
There are artifacts in the game, if that's what you mean. Are you referring to a specific thing?
Yeah, I think it is artifacts. Like it feels like an artifact that would be important to you completing almost.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah. But yeah, no, this feels like something that you could build a campaign, or at the very least a story arc around, where it's like, oh, you've received this from a Fey Lord that you won the favor of, but there's more that you need to do to power it up. Like, it's an incredible hook. And as we've discussed before, we all love items that tell a story or get you thinking about a story. I feel like that's the most effective thing that an item can do. Like, sure, it's great when you get a sword that does an extra 2d6 fire damage. Like, everybody loves a flame tongue. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But it's a lot more evocative and it's a
Yeah.
lot more exciting when you get an item that tells an interesting story, when you get an item where you're reading the card back and you're like, yeah, I remember when we got this, and I remember all the times that I've gotten to use these cool features. Like, flame
Yeah.
tongues are cool, but items that tell a story are even better.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm gonna be honest. I blacked out when you started reading all of the effects of the blessings because it's a legendary item. They can be whatever you want them to be, and even if they are weaker, like Adam was just saying, if you give somebody a weaker one to start a quest with this item, and you tell them like you can earn all of these other blessings, here's what I'm giving you, and they're like, this is great, but
Yeah.
look at that one, like you're gonna want to get to the other one.
So
Absolutely.
So I just decided to go like kind of look up, just go through some of the list of things. So a lot of fiends are immune to poison, but they're not immune to frighten. And then I was looking at angels. A lot of them are immune, or at least the few in the monster menu. Most of them are they're all immune to being frightened, but most of them actually aren't immune to poison. So
Also, it's very rare that you're fighting angels. Like,
Nah.
honestly,
Nah.
this is gonna maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. I think that the Celestials in the monster manual are kind of a waste of space because 99% of campaigns, people aren't fighting angels. We don't need stat blocks for how to fight a Solar or a Radiant. Like those,
This is a
no,
hot take.
I don't need. Like, I totally think that those should be stat blocks that are available in the game, but I think that it was a waste of time and effort to put them in the monster manual, the base list of monsters. I think that the Celestials should have been saved for a supplement like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, because I just think that the vast majority of players are never going to fight a Celestial.
I think it was a way just to give DMs kind of like a stat block for if you're doing like a battle between angels and things.
Sure, right. If you're doing a Celestial versus
And they're,
Fiend
like-
fight, then okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But just for how many Celestials are in the monster manual, I feel like that was effort that could have been focused elsewhere.
I think that you are technically on the right page. However, the reason I'm not with you fully, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that there's a lot of monsters in the monster manual that 95% of games are not going to fight in a reasonable way. Anything CR 20 and higher, probably not getting fought in 95% of the games. But you need to have those in there. I think for the completeness of the game, I think that's important. Because I think it's if you're going to have devils and demons, I think you need to have... And there's only 3 angels in the monster manual. It's not like they've wasted all of their space on it. And there are some Celestials in the game that that I think come up story-wise. You don't fight them. But like, for instance, unicorns, I think probably aren't super uncommon. I also don't think that Pegasi are super uncommon. Those are two things that pop in my mind immediately when I think of a D&D game, actually, for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but they do.
I mean, unicorn does feel like one of those go-to Celestials because they are on the lower-ish end for a CR, and also there are a lot of things, a lot of people talk about like the corruption of killing a unicorn, or like what happens when you corrupt a unicorn, and so like there's a lot of like hooks that go around unicorns, and because I feel like when you think of an angel, generally you kind of just categorize all angels together, but a unicorn is its kind of own thing. Angels are a group of winged soldiers of the gods, and but they have kind of their own classifications and whatnot. But a unicorn is just a unicorn. There's not a whole lot of...
Yeah, I'm not fighting you on the Pegasus, Unicorn, or Coatl, but I think that the pages dedicated to the Deva, Empyrean, Planetar, and Solar could have been used for something else.
Well, if you have...
Yeah, but it's only a few pages.
Right, and again, I realize that this is a hot take.
But imagine how many books they printed.
That's
Also-
true. That's millions of pages even.
If you take shape change and you happen to run into not an alien,
That's
an
another
angel
thing.
at some point, you're gonna want that stat block. You're gonna give me that juicy. I wanna be an angel.
I guess I'm just still salty that the Zaratan didn't make it into the core monster manual. So like every time that I'm flipping through the monster manual and see a monster that I'm not personally a fan of, I'm like, that could have been the Zaratan. But all we need is one page for the Zaratan.
That's fair. I can't hold that against you. Passion speaks, and I like to listen. So, was there? I think I want to use this item, but there have been other items that are designed in a similar way to this. I think honestly, in some extent, I think you really have to as a DM. I'm gonna be honest. I think if you're running a campaign and you don't have an item like this in some way, I feel like there's a huge space of the game that you're not exploring. Obviously, I think there could be campaigns that don't have it. I don't mean that literally. I'm just saying that there's no reason not to have an item like this. Not necessarily one where you have to go on specific quests to get stuff, but at least one that advances the story in some way. Either the literal plot itself or a character's development in the game. I think it's a really important space to explore, even in lower level campaigns. Even if you only play campaigns to level 10, I think there's a lot of space in there to have an item that has as deep of a connection to the game, either through a character or through the plot in this way. I think it's just something that you really should explore as a DM if you really want to get the most out of your experience with the game.
Yeah, I think that an item like this allows you to uniquely motivate your players without just relying on the carrot of treasure or glory. Like, it gives them a tangible, powerful benefit.
I love this for everything in between, giving it to somebody for a whole quest line to get all of the blessings, or giving it to a character and saying if you do good, you get more blessings, and they just have a secondary goal in mind.
Yeah, I could see even if you're playing with a warlock who is an Archfey patron, giving this them at the very beginning with one of the like kind of weaker effects, and still be, or maybe even just one of the effects just nerfed a little bit. Like maybe you don't want to give them the full blinked out ability, like, but you do want to give them the ability to do it like once per short rest or something, and then they as they grow, that just becomes the full ability.
Right.
I think would be fun as fuck.
I only have one more thing to say about this, and I think with the framework that you've given with the blessings from a blink dog, a dryad, pixie, all that sort of stuff, there are other kind of creatures.
Fae stuff.
Yeah, you could absolutely expand this to have other Fae give blessings.
Or other types of creatures.
Yeah, but like
a dragon's
like
blessing.
A Bullywug.
Bullywug blessing. That'd be
Bullywug blessing. Hell yeah!
Blessing of the Bullywugs.
Perfect for that low level campaign we were talking about.
Every time you get blessed by a Bullywug, you grow another tongue that has Bullywug fluid in it.
For that full Bullywug campaign that I'm gonna run one day.
Actually, no,
you guys are gonna be Bullywugs with Bullywugs.
There's actually not all that many Fae.
Not in the monster manual, not even in the expanded. I considered doing some of the expanded phase, but I didn't want any evil Fae. There's a couple of those in expanded, but you could. There are some key mechanics to some of the newer Fae that you could add to this. What's up, Zach?
Thing is,
I think we have a topic for next week.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, this is the last item. We don't have a lot more to say, so go ahead and drop it. What's your idea for the next?
Besides adding that like DM chooses thing wording on there, I don't have anything else.
Also, while we're quibbling about wording, the way that you talked about the DC felt kind of wordy for me. Like some of these blessings require the target to make a saving throw. The saving throw is calculated as blah. I think it would be easier to just say the saving throw for any of these effects is calculated as, rather than that first sentence about some of these require a saving throw.
Yeah, this was more or less copied from the monk, because they're kind of the main ones that have like, you might get more key effects, you might not. If you do, here's your DC. And that's kind of the vibe I wanted to give, because not all of them have a DC. And I didn't want to, on the ones that had a DC, continuously say, A+++. I wanted to say in one place,
That's
and this
fair,
was just
yeah.
the way I saw the PHB do it, so I was like, I'll just do it that way.
Did you make it not your spellcasting modifier because you wanted to give it to different classes besides
Yes.
spellcasters?
Yeah, I didn't
That's
want
the
this to
thing.
just be for spellcasters. So if you
Yeah,
are like a fighter or somebody, you may not have the strongest mental ability, but you could at least pick the best one that you have.
Yeah.
Right. Pick the one that you would cast spells with if you were the kind of person who
Yeah.
casted spells.
Yeah.
No, my idea I mean, it was basically what we were talking about just now. There's not many Fae.
Create Fae.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
I
Man.
already.
would be
It's,
tough.
anybody else have any other
Shawn's on
ideas
board, I know.
that they were excited for? Because I was gonna suggest doing finally Sid's alternative racial traits thing.
Oh,
But
I'm cool with that.
I'm down. I'm down for either.
I would be cool with waiting on Fae because monsters are a bit more difficult to come up with, and we could like give it some time. Just add it to the list and think about it.
Those both sound hard to me, so
I think I think alternative race features.
Okay. Well, but we'll
I- I-
put we'll put the Fae monsters in the thingy.
okay, so we're doing
We got a thingy.
So we're doing alternative racial traits for next week.
Yeah,
Yes.
so just like replacement class features, these are replacement racial features. These are not sub races. These are taking racial traits and changing
Such
them to
as?
something else.
What is an example of something you would change?
Very, very common example, I think, for this would be like the tieflings. The tieflings in, I believe, Volos. There's a whole different kinds of tieflings. They're not just sub races.
They're in Mordenkainen's
Are they
and
Mordenkainen's? Okay.
and Sword Coast Adventurers Guide.
No one cares about Sword Course Adventure.
How dare you! I will always love the winged tiefling.
Another example might be maybe you don't like the flavor of Drow's spells, so you want to change their spell casting. Maybe there's a different kind of Drow, maybe like an alternative Drow where they cast light based spells instead of darkness based spells, and you get rid of the sunlight sensitivity with something else that's also detriment. Maybe they get this like some sort of fucking problem with darkness of the moon.
Or for example, some people feel like the Goliath does not do a good job of selling its mountain home, so you might replace the Goliath's like added carrying capacity and resistance to cold damage.
Yes.
Do they resist the cold damage? Okay.
Pretty sure.
But you might replace those features with something else that you feel better sells their like giant heritage and their like mountain home.
I like the idea of a plains Goliath instead of a mountain Goliath.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might want to replace their cold resistance with something that means that they live in the plains. I don't know. That's your idea, not mine.
Do you want to contribute to next week's Sid with your excited chant of Shark Triton?
Oh my God, Shark Triton! Oh my God, if
I
Sid
was
hadn't
wrong.
said that, oh man.
I was wrong. They do not get resistant to cold
I
damage.
said I don't think so.
yeah,
They just get the acclimation to cold weather and stuff, right?
Oh right. Well, regardless, you might replace that ribbon feature with a plains-based ribbon feature. Hell yeah! So Sid's gonna try and make a Shark Triton for us for next week.
I've been wanting to do a Shark Triton
Triton.
for so long. Now's your day. All right.
Hell
Well,
yeah.
that is our idea for next week. Before we sign off here, was there anything that you guys wanted to say?
Leisure demand. That's my word for this week. Leisure demand.
Leisure demand? Is that one word or two words?
That's well, in French it's 3 words, but in English it's 1 word.
The fuck does it mean?
It means like sleight of hand. In
Interesting.
French, it's literally a lightness of the hand or like a light touch. But in English, it's usually used to mean like sleight of hand or like leisure demand is also something that people talk about a lot when they're talking about like close-up magic and like the hand movements involved in that.
I'm gonna go ahead.
I was gonna say, I did say no subclasses, or sub races. But if you do a sub race that isn't just additional features on top of a race that already has subclasses, but instead an alternative version of that race, say a Shark Triton, then that's okay.
Okay, sick, cool. Because I was thinking about a thing that was maybe in that vein. So sub races are okay if they're replacing features and not just adding them.
Yeah, so you can't make just another halfling subrace. You have to fundamentally change the halfling race itself in some way.
Okay, cool. I'm down for this. I think Shark Triton is really on my mind right now, but I think I'm gonna pick my other thing. Hey, Sid, I am very excited to see this Shark Triton. I love Tritons.
We're expecting great things. Great things.
Great things.
My only thing I want to say is that I guess I have to get started on a Bullywug Ooze mixture lore and a campaign for Bullywugs
Or
now.
wait, maybe in
Hell
your
yeah.
world, the Bullywugs and Oozes are like always at war with each other. Like,
Oh no!
Oh
Oozes
shit!
are just really old bullywugs that have been consumed by their bullywug fluid.
oh god, all the Oozes are made of
I'm out.
Bullywug fluid.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of like a blood war thing between Bullywugs and Oozes, but I think I like it even less if the Ooze. Oh god, it's Bullywug fluid all the way down. Oh god.
I'm glad that Bullywug fluid is what was the most evocative thing of what I came up with. Because when I thought of it, I was like, oh, it's beautiful. Mwah. I love it.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss this
Just
bullywug
imagine,
fluid.
just imagine a Bullywug that's like
We are. That's the problem.
that's like half congealed already, and so it's like upper half just kind of like flapping around, just like.
That's
God.
the elder Bullywug.
Houston, you're disgusting. Sean, sign us off.
Yeah. So yeah, join us next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, still until fall. I always hesitate on that. But next week we're going to be doing alternative racial traits / fundamentally changing subraces. So look forward to that. Can't wait to work on this. Before next week, before we sign off, just remember, things that are lost must be found, and things that are found must be remembered. See you next week.